Chris, thank you so much for coming down. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Silas. I'm sorry I was late.
Don't worry, don't even mention it. Right, I need to make sure I'm not geeking out,
Right.
because we have met before,
Yes.
and then I've seen you in a couple of projects since.
Okay.
Obviously, I actually have seen Wrath of Man.
Right.
I absolutely hated you with a passion in
Did you?
Slow Horses.
Really?
Every time I saw you, I was like, somebody punch him now.
That's good. That's the desired effect.
Oh God, man. Oh, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there was that moment when you're interrogating someone in the back of a van, and I'm like, don't you dare.
Don't you dare.
Don't you dare.
Don't you, and I did.
That guy had my heartstrings, because I'm like, don't say anything, and he just says one thing.
I loved that job. That was amazing. That was season 3.
Yes.
And that was where Saul Metzstein was the director, and we had some real. Will Smith, the writer, was there most of those days as well, and we had some real good fun. Will kept adding bits of script and adding little funny bits, and really pushing the nastiness of the character. It was a lot of fun.
Oh man. Oh God. Yeah, and also I did message you that you're one of the funniest people to see just raging. Every time I see you on screen in that series, you're just going off about something.
Aye, it's brilliant. Like there was one instance where the writer Will was behind. We've got this thing called Video Village. So when you're shooting, there's the director and the writer and anyone who's concerned with the look of the show will be sitting monitoring all the different things that are going on. And I went to him and this scene where I'm in this large atrium, if you like, and there's a lot of other people that I'm playing to, and I says, is there a better button for the end of this? And he gave me this amazing, very cheeky line to say at the end of everything I was doing, and I was invading everyone's space at the end anyway, and he didn't tell the other guy who I was giving this cheeky line to, and basically I just ended up calling him all the horrible names under the sun and being very disparaging towards his weight as well. And the guy was a heavier man. Nick was heavier as well, but the guy looked at me with genuine hatred and shock when I gave him this line. It was so good. And Will did that. He says, say this to him, but I didn't know he hadn't told the other guy. So he just was like,
it's like he's going off script. This is like wrestling now.
He is going off script and he's getting personal, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh man, that I wanted to take it back a little bit, because I did realise, so I did a bit of research what I could do. There was a really cool thing that I saw that this is Wikipedia, so feel free to correct me. It said that you set out on the acting journey at 31, but I didn't know if you finished studying at that age or you started everything at that age. This is something that it says there, or just the idea of starting later than what is the common,
I began a journey as an amateur before that, a couple of years before that, for one big reason. I used to work in adult care, and it was some job, well, it was a job that you took home with you, and so I needed something to escape from that, and I found amateur dramatics. And when I found amateur dramatics, I found all the branches off of amateur dramatics that you get involved in, and I found that I had a real passion for acting. I never knew that I had it before I got into it, and I got into everything from working backstage to building sets for Scottish Opera, Scottish Ballet, for a very large amateur dramatics company in Glasgow called the Apollo Players. And I just realised that I wanted to do it for a living. I got some good feedback, so I applied to Royal Welsh College. I think I was 30 when I did that, and I went and I completed the 1 year course, the postgraduate course that they do, and by the time I did that I was well into age 31.
That's amazing, man, because I've been sort of, the cool part of doing these interviews and sort of chats with people is just seeing all the different journeys that people have into the industry, and sometimes people take breaks and come back, and they come back with a new vigor and stuff. So it's always amazing to hear that there's not just the cookie cutter, finish high school, went into drama school, bish bash bosh, graduated RCS, and now I'm making a killing. Like, there's actual ways into the industry that people sometimes are not aware of. And there was something really cool that I saw where you emphasized the need, and you talked about the difficulties and also the gratefulness of being able to get into it as a working class actor. Like, I'm an immigrant lad from Romania who's like, yeah, I'm working class too. And so just seeing that, and again, especially in this context now in 2025, where there's a lot of challenges of the industry, and the industry is going through changes and things, and just hearing that was quite...
There's a lot of major changes going on in the industry at the moment, and sadly they disadvantage the working classes. So I grew up in a homeless unit, the same homeless unit that I then converted into an adult care service. I was 10 when my mother and father split up, and my father was our single parent. He had a bed and breakfast that wasn't doing very well with tourists, and so he took on DSS. And because he needed the maximum amount of rooms, we ended up sharing a room with an old soldier that was there, a non-family member. My brother and I, topped and tailed in a cabin bed in a room where he was drunk 3 days a week, so we had to sleep in the living room when that was going on. So we were pretty poor. We didn't have an awful lot, but we did have a very strong role model in my father, and we did see my mother, but we did have a very strong role model that kept us on those rails that maybe other kids weren't kept on. We never fortunately got into drugs, we never fortunately got into violence and gang violence and all these other things that working class kids get into.
It can happen, yeah.
I was very academic. I was kind of academically, I suppose, gifted, and it meant that I enjoyed school, and that was also an escape for me. All those other branches of things that I could go into were an escape from that for me. And we met hundreds of different types of people from all different types of walks of life at the great point of crisis in their life, homelessness, which allowed me a real chance to study human nature. That's the advantage of it. So in that respect, I have a great advantage going into the work that I'm doing. I developed that into a place where we then put care plans in place and looked after kids coming out of the care system. We looked after women fleeing violence. We looked after ex-offenders. We looked after all sorts of different people in a structured way that got them back on track. When, as an adult, when I joined the care service as its manager, and then went in to do other things. So all that stuff, and I went to uni and did other things. I built a convent in Leipzig in Germany. I did all sorts of other things when I was on my journey. That took me to age, say, 29, going into amateur dramatics, age 30 going to drama school, age 31 graduating, and then doing that. But right now, the working classes have been asked, I think, to step out of the argument about diversity rather than be included in that argument about diversity. And it's a very difficult conversation to have. But the result of it is that we, as a working class group, are now half as well represented in the arts as we were in the 70s. And it was a problem then. I think it's something like 9%.
I remember seeing some series, oh God, was it just called The Street? Or something. I remember that was set in a working class background. Basically, this
great series. I worked on that.
The father discovers the one episode I remember seeing is this: the workers go away, they work in a different town, whatever, and then one of them kisses a man, and that rocks his beliefs about himself of like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So that was like, I remember seeing that episode and it was quite powerful.
Right.
But that was something that was about working classes. That was about the neighborhood. And just seeing that, and I just had to reference, you talked about, obviously having the struggle, but learning about the craft without realizing it. I actually also grew up with a single dad.
Right.
We had a bunk bed and stuff, right?
Aye.
But what my dad did without realizing it, so he was a Jehovah's Witness, so acting was a no-no as a kid. But he wanted to keep me entertained as a kid, so I'm not lonely, and obviously my mom's not in the picture. So he'd bring home comedies. He'd bring home, like, we'd have all these pirated CDs and DVDs. Like, at some point we actually bought HBO Rome. So I saw all
that
these.
show.
That was amazing.
Aye.
It's the precursor to Game of Thrones. It set the tone. But basically, I just got to get this education in film and TV without realizing it, because I had no idea I was going to become an actor. I was going to be a Jehovah's Witness. Right. But again, it's just in the midst of all the struggle, or just what life is, you get these unexpected advantages without realizing it.
Exactly. Unexpected advantages. Neurodiversity, I suppose, is an unexpected advantage in that you can focus very, very intently on something. But it's interesting that you bring up that episode of The Street, because I think it ties into the classes that rule the establishment of our industry, certainly in this country, do apologise, I suppose, for our privilege, and we wonder what privilege did we have in bunk beds? Why am I paying for that? Apologise for your privilege if you like, but understand, the what do they call it? The confluence or how my privilege comes into or does or doesn't come into the situation. But the working class experience isn't very well represented when it is written into television, except there's been a few really cracking recent series that did it.
I think Brassic does it in a comedic way.
Brassic does it in a comedic way, and Adolescence, I think, that element to it. But then you've got a champion in Stephen Graham, the same as you've got a champion in Vicky McClure. Those guys, when they did This Is England, they struggled to make that performance, which was as good as any performance in a film, work for them in the way that people who are established and have connections do and can. But you mentioned that it was a gay theme to that story. I've got plenty of gay friends. I'm working class. All my friends have got gay friends. The way that working classes are portrayed as reacting to those types of situations socially is often negative. But I think there are plenty of stories out there where people like my cousin, who is gay, came out as gay in his 20s and was embraced by all of our friends, plasterers, electricians, people, and was completely embraced by that. I think those stories are part of the modern experience, and they aren't being represented.
It's almost like they're trying to, sometimes they try to tell a story that they think will appeal, but it's that worked in the past.
But not just cavemen.
But people have moved on.
Exactly.
So just because it worked in the past doesn't mean we're still there.
Our narrative's changed along with the rest of society, and those working class stories are deeper than that. It's not just about coming out and your friends rejecting you. That in many ways is part of the normal element that we swim through as people. Is but we should be represented, I suppose.
I'm not gonna lie, because coming over as a Romanian immigrant, it was like.
Oh, you did a hell of a time.
But I found it that I actually, because you come over here and you're trying your best, and then at some point, mate, you go, there seems to be a bit of a, it's like I'm swimming against a bit of the current sometimes, right? But then you look around and you realise, oh, I'm not the only one. Like, there's these lads in Scotland that are having the same fucking thing. Cause I recently had, I just did a theatre tour in Europe, and I'm super grateful for it, and I'm playing British parts, all that stuff. Come back home, first audition is Romanian gangster says, where is my money? Give me my money. If you don't give me my money, I will take your hand. And I was like, and these are people in theatre who've got several awards, and I'm like, that's all you came up with?
Aye.
It's pretty sad. But then I look at, Glaswegians going, we're always the gangsters and the criminals as well.
There's a deeper, richer experience in that, and I think it would be best released into the world by encouraging from a low level writers and producers and directors who are also working class, who can bring those experiences into the world. And that isn't about dragging people into positions that we're not ready for. It's about making sure that those kids have the educational opportunities and the support that they need to embrace the arts for themselves. And
sometimes it might mean that the cultural sensitivities of the middle class will sometimes clash a bit with the cultural sensitivities of the working class.
They're just unaware. Or they just don't really know what it's about. They don't really know what it's about to have literally nothing in your pocket. To be running around collecting deposit bottles, gingy bottles we used to call them, and going to the ice cream van for a double nugget that you could only get once a week or something, or genuinely walking to school with holes in your shoes, and everybody else was doing the same. It's like or cramming hot dogs into your mouth in the school dinner queue before you get to the till, so that you don't need to pay for everything you've eaten. That is a genuine thing. There are so many kids in this world, in our country, with nothing. And it genuinely moves me to tears. It breaks my heart that they don't think of themselves as anything, because they limit their opportunities from a very early age to the point where it's this is all I can expect from life. It breaks my heart.
Yeah, no, that is, yeah. It's because you realise it's like people see that and then they self-apply limits that if you could just get through to them and be like, there's ways to come out of this, there's ways to get a better life, you would just, yeah, there's a lot of people we lose along the way due to just...
Oh, I've lost plenty of friends to suicide or violence or drugs.
Yeah, sometimes lack of opportunities, or sometimes just the lack of awareness of those opportunities, because if it's not presented to you, you might not even think it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, we lost kids and we lost friends in school. One was suicide and another was drugs. I was 19 when a really great friend of mine, we used to walk home together from school, and drugs. I could drag the tone down, but what I suppose we need to do is understand that please stop apologising for our privilege, but just give us a crack at it. Give us these opportunities, and stop asking us to leave the room because you can't sort out what it means to be diverse in this country.
Yeah, there's as an Eastern European, it's very interesting to say that the UK is so used to sort of exporting its culture, and sometimes it's trying to export its guilt, and it's trying to be like, no, we all did this, we're all responsible for this. And you could say that we're benefiting from it to some extent, but what extent is very debatable at times. But as an Eastern European, you kind of go, no, you figure out your own shit before you start telling me what I should be feeling bad about when we were not even in the conversation at all.
I mean,
like these sort of things.
The class argument is ultra complex in that respect, because I mean they were sending tanks to George Square when we were protesting, and we've kind of been subdued. So working classes are always getting subdued and patted down. It's just very difficult to tell, you know, from 10 metres away who's working class, who's middle class, and who's upper class, which is an argument for a real kind of reset into the thinking that really we should just be giving everybody who wants an opportunity the ability to show their ability. And that's really hard to do, because you know the years of support that you do need to achieve a career in the arts is a universal challenge for people regardless of class, but people with resources can easily give that.
Yeah, because there's the years of where you don't get a lot back, you just put it in the effort. It's a long-term investment, and if you don't have the finances to be able to maintain that, then you're going to get burnt out and you might drop out.
But I tell you what I have found, and this is a comment on class again that we maybe shouldn't have got into, but I found that people who you might regard as middle class are less aware of those challenges than people you might regard as upper class. The real champions I've found in this discussion have been people, perhaps it's easy to say, with those types of resources, but most of the toffs I know, if you want to call people toffs, if that's not a disparaging label, are so supportive of those working class kids, and I suppose all diversity, they are so supportive of that. Perhaps it's because they are not battling to create a career of their own through a very difficult industry, and that's a level of understanding that you've got to apply to middle classes. They're sharp elbowed, they're often squeezed, they've got their own difficulties in the journey, but I've found that the champions of this argument have been...
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic character. You see these in memes and like little, you know, like sketches where it's like old money versus new money, or like they like to do this of like the person that just, you know, is a millionaire versus the person who's made shit ton of money, and they're not trying to throw their weight around. Like it's definitely a thing that happens of when people just get there. Some people, you know, they're
more
grateful.
Relaxed.
Yeah,
maybe
some people are grateful they got there, and some people are trying to differentiate and treat people differently because of it.
And as an industry, we're really as an industry we are really like, we're really good at being nice to each other, but when it comes to the business of that industry, it's as cutthroat as any industry I've ever existed in.
Yeah, man. It can be frustrating sometimes, because like you'll do workshops and everybody is super complimentary about everything to all the time, and you go, I can't trust your compliments because we're watching the same performances and they're not all at the same level, and that is not putting anyone down. But if I'm gonna take the feedback on board that you're giving me, I need to be able to trust that you're trying to be objective and not just massaging my ego or someone else's ego.
Yeah, and that comes back to truth, which is the best thing in all conversations, and every conversation we have. Truth is the greatest gift, isn't it? Like, a sincere truth is what you owe your friends. That's how you know people are your friends, if you get the truth from someone. So there's a nice level that the creative industry exists on. The business level that supports that and makes it pay for everyone is, extremely difficult and extremely cutthroat, and it is a business in every sense of the word.
Pretty much, I couldn't put it better myself. There's a couple of things that were like fun facts that I wanted to ask you about, and then there's obviously the thing that you're working on and producing, and I want to get into that as well. I was really curious, right? Because it says that you're probably the only person who's got 2 credits on Game of Thrones.
I'm a quiz question that probably nobody ever sets. I was in 2 episodes of Game of Thrones, but I appeared in Game of Thrones as 2 completely separate characters. Small characters, but scripted characters, not an extra with a line or anything like that. I appeared as a guy called Soldier Tom in episode 210.
Right.
I'm walking down through this wooded shore towards Brienne of Tarth, and we have an exchange. And then they asked me back, even though they killed me in that scene, they asked me back, spoiler, pardon me, they asked me back to do season 4-1, where I appear as a Lannister in Littlefinger's brothel, with Peter Dinklage and Pedro Pascal, and Pedro and I have a bit of an argument, a bit of a fight. So they brought me back, and I the reason that Dan Weiss and David Benioff brought me back is they said, you were so good that we didn't have to cut around you. And I thought, alright, so I was just good enough. Because I was being killed in season 2-1, or episode 210, sorry, there was an element of me suffering, and they liked so much that they didn't have to make accommodations for a really terrible actor. So they weren't saying I was a good actor, they were saying I wasn't. I was so not terrible that they didn't have to cut around me, and that's the reason they brought me back.
Well, that's good to know. That's probably the best feedback you can get. You were not terrible.
You were so not terrible that we brought you back from the dead.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
The other thing I have to ask, right, just because this is a personal little thing of mine, I grew up, once I decided I want to become an actor, right, I had my little pictures of who are the actors that I love, right, and up there was Philip Seymour Hoffman, then Viola Davis got up there once I saw Fences, but at the top for the longest time was Gary Oldman.
Right, me too.
Because basically I was just like, oh my god, right?
Me
and
too.
obviously you got to work with him, so just a part of me just wanted to know, because like it seems so unattainable as a kid in Romania, and then to speak to someone who's actually worked with him, like there's a little geeky part of me is like, what was that like?
So my favourite Gary Oldman performance is in Hannibal with Anthony Hopkins,
right? Oh,
the sequel to Silence of the Lambs, and he plays Mason Verger. He's a character who has suffered at the hands of Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal, and is now in a wheelchair and needs all sorts of different apparatus to keep him functioning. He's very rich, and he gives this chilling performance. And originally Gary Oldman didn't have a credit for that. He wasn't credited at the end. He wanted the character to exist on its own. Now it's since been adjusted, he does have that credit, but when it came out, it wasn't a Gary Oldman performance, and he was so good. It gave me chills the way this guy was able to transform and manipulate other people in a scene, and it was amazing. And when I first met Gary on the set of Slow Horses, we had a couple of scenes together, and then the next time I was asking him about this particular thing in the back of a car going home, and he did the voice for me in the darkness, that Mason Verger voice, where he is very sinister. And he did, and I just was like chills. And so he became like a real source of fun, and he was lovely. He was very supportive. His wife and his kids sometimes visited the set. He would have, video calls come in from the great and the good. He was very good friends with David Bowie that he was talking about. he was able to relate so much of both sides of the technical side of the work, and give us a lot of pointers there, but also of the fun side, that insight into things behind the scenes of previous performances that I had so enjoyed. It was amazing.
That's the only, I had to ask, because like as a kid that was like the pinnacle. But once I decided, that I'm gonna give this a bash, he was like, right, that's what we're going for.
Well, he's lovely.
I'm glad to know.
You never meet a nicer guy.
But actually, kudos to you as well, because I wanted to say that I very much. So I saw you in Slow Horses. I did see you in Wrath of Man. Great American accent, by the way. I must say, I was.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've seen I've seen you doing different things. I've seen a clip of FBI International, and I saw this monologue you did, which was about, I think, losing a child. I think you shared it on your socials. Was that?
Oh, that's Call the Midwife.
I thought so.
Another kind of unique thing about Call the Midwife is they don't tend to have returning storylines, but they have returned with our storyline 3 times. So I know them quite well, those people, and they're really great people. And they wrote this cracking Christmas special, and they put us front and centre in that, and they gave me this monologue to do. And it was about how much I loved my child. She hadn't died, but she was a thalidomide child. And it was about how I felt I had failed her because I descended into alcoholism, because of how difficult it was to manage her normalisation in the 60s when she was, she maybe wasn't seen as normal. She was given special treatment that probably wasn't in her best interests at that time, and how attitudes were changing, and how the show causes those attitudes to change. But they gave us this lovely monologue. what they did is they brought me into this scene that they had set up with all the supporting artists and the other actors in it, and they asked me just to do it straight away, and they had set up already, and I just did it once, and the director came over and whispered into my ear, "We don't need to do that again," and that was it. We just did it in one take, and that was it.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, and they paid me a real compliment, because the camera never moves. It just stays for, I think it's 3 minutes or something. It just stays on me, and they could have chopped that up in the edit. They could have done whatever they liked, but it was a real nice moment. So yeah.
I was going to ask you like what the experience of, because as far as I'm aware of Call the Midwife, it is a staple of British culture.
Yeah. Pretty
much. So does that differ? Like, is there a different feeling going on set of something that's been so long running and so well established?
Not really, because we are, but like the acting family is really welcoming to everybody. Like we're really good at getting to know people quite quickly, so that we can work. It's for everybody's benefit. But it's what I suppose is often commented about Call the Midwife is that it's a show for a certain audience.
Right.
But I'm a great believer in entertainment. We are here to entertain. That's the one thing. That's the one good thing that we can do. And a lot of actors become activists these days, because I'll tell you exactly why it is. It's so they've got something to say on social media other than cooking or doing something else silly or dancing around. It increases their relevance.
I mean, there's in the attention sort of industry that we're in, because it's attention economy, right? Is that like sometimes people genuinely believe and stand up for it, but there is an element of managers saying, it would really look good, it would really make you relevant.
I'm cynical. It's an attention economy, and I know that I've thought to myself, what can I do to increase my publicity? And but we are fundamentally what we should be doing. Ricky Gervais got it right. You're entertainers. Take your award, shut up, and get off the stage, and let the next person come on and take their award and shut up and get off the stage. There's too many people with too many opinions, and they're not well formed opinions. But what I was going to say about Call the Midwife is that it's a show that entertains many millions of people, and that to me is having that voice, having that opportunity to entertain is the greatest thing. And I love that show, and I'm not ashamed of it, and I think it's a great show, and I think it has great storylines, and it's got a great mission. Pippa, who writes it, has a mission to tell these stories for the benefit of society, for the benefit of culture, for the benefit of how everybody relates to those issues, and how they bring them in, and I I love that show.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, there's definitely, I had to learn this in my stand-up, where I started out with stand-up.
Do you do stand-up?
Yeah, I do stand-up as well, just because I love doing it, and it's also something to do when, you know, there's nothing else going on.
Nicola Sturgeon's doing stand-up now.
Is she?
She is. There we were talking about the attention economy.
We wish her well. I'm just, like, politicians doing stand-up, to me, it's going to take a while for me to be like, right, okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Get out of the jungle.
I know Mary Black is doing.
She is.
And she did quite well, so fair dues to her.
She's got quite a lot of good stuff to say, though, isn't she? She's got a heart that's
she's been there. She's been through it. I mean, I have to yet to see the show, but I know that she's doing quite well, so I'm pleased.
Yeah, she's doing great, and I'm pleased as well. I've met Nicola Sturgeon twice.
Politicians doing stand-up to me is it's stand-up is the art form that people that are, for whatever reason, can do the other thing quite often resort to. Like people that have been cancelled in the acting for doing something suspicious or fucked up will start doing stand-up.
I might have more time for her if she didn't just turn around and batter the working classes rather than help us out the way she said she would. But anyway.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But yeah, I was going to say that what I learned in stand-up, because I went in with, I've got things to talk about and this is what I'm going to say. And then you kind of realise that, yeah, but people came for comedy. Like I'm trying. Like I started out with, it has to be as funny as it is insightful.
Entertain. Stop. Like entertain. Get off your soapbox. Entertain me. Make me laugh. Let me forget that my life is terrible. It actually
works better if you focus more on the entertaining than on the messaging, because once people are entertained and they're at ease, then you can actually highlight something, or you can pose a question. But if you're coming in with, this is what I'm going to tell you and I'm going to make that funny, then you're just doing a funny TED talk. And I had to learn on my own skin of like, you know, it's okay to just be silly, and then every now and again you pepper something in, and it actually works better, because when it hits, people go, oh, okay. So yeah.
Do you know the comedian Paul Chowdhry?
Yes.
Good friend of mine.
Don't know him personally, but
good friend of mine, Paul Chowdhry. We worked together on Devils when he was on that as an actor. And have you ever seen him work the crowd? I've seen him live millions of times. He doesn't have a script. He doesn't even have like an idea what he's going to do a lot of the time before he goes on. He just plays the audience off each other. He does this really clever thing where he gets one audience member playing, and he could almost stand back and say nothing and let the carnage and comedy ensue. He's fantastic. I don't know if you watch Paul.
I've seen clips of it.
He's amazing.
I don't think I fully followed his comedy, but I've definitely seen bits and bobs, because there's so much happening out there that you just can't see everyone.
You should go and see him live. I don't know how he's still alive. I don't know how he's been dragged out of a venue. He's amazing.
That's amazing. So the other thing I wanted to ask, we talked about sort of working class and everything that's happening in the industry in the UK right now, and I have noticed this. Well, trend, but a lot of people are starting to do this, which is actors are becoming producers and directors, and they basically starting to tell the stories that they want to tell. And I mentioned to you, so my friend Kyle Sabir, who just recently did his stuff with the MTS, and he mentioned that you're doing this as well. And obviously the big worldwide examples are The Rock, Ryan Reynolds, and Brad Pitt's producing stuff, you know. Like,
he's always been doing that, including Matt Damon. These guys all produce their own stuff.
Just remember.
Right, they just produce their own stuff, and I think it's. I don't know why they did it. I've got an idea, because really you're trying to look for. You get a script and you think I'd be ideal in this, and you build everything else around it, and it makes sense, packaging, that sort of thing. But the reason that I decided to do it was that. As an actor in the kind of middle rung of everything, you know, sitting slightly below those star names like Gary Oldman, supporting those guys and that lead cast, our wages are getting squeezed because the top end are still getting what they need to do the job, who are probably unaware that the fact that ITV are going from 3 million an hour to 1 million an hour, and everything they're doing means that guys like me get squeezed into like real difficulty where the wages are concerned. It's not something that I expect a lot of people to have sympathy for, but it exists. So what I've begun to do is work with 2 script writers to come up with stories of our own that we can produce at various levels. So 20, 100,000 for a feature, 100,000 for a feature, 2 million for a feature, 10 million for a feature. And we develop these variety of projects that we can either pivot and do ourselves with money we can raise ourselves, money we can raise through local businesses, money we can raise at a low level through the indie route, and money that we can raise at a high level through packaging with other stars and people who know a bit more about it than we do. And we've been pretty successful in doing that by kind of doing those tranches of sizes of projects that allow us to say, if we can get this going, we'll do this. If we can't get that going, we'll do this. I've recently just filmed my first feature in Cambodia, with the local crew, on a great script with a great piece of IP that we got quite cheap, and that was a great experience for me. We're planning another feature that's got slightly more money in it, that I can raise myself through selling some assets, and we might do that again if I've got the director's calling card coming from this. We are developing something with a larger channel who have committed to putting some money into things, and that's allowing us to develop a feature that's at the kind of 2 million mark. And we're also developing another feature at the 10 million mark that I was on a conversation about this morning, where we've had to attach a star name and a great director, and we've done that. So that's all learning as well, but it's all very kind of proactive work, and the credibility that I have is at a certain level, but making those phone calls to people who might finance things, they don't want to hear from people like me. So you've got to think of other ways of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I've in the stand-up world, in the podcast world, I just went, right, I'm going to the people, I'm going online, because that allows me to sort of build up my audience, and then hopefully years down the line where I can say, you know, I have this audience, maybe then maybe someone will approach me, or I can approach someone going, look, I've built up this audience, I've got this idea, I think it's going to do quite well because there's a groundwork already laid for it, let's see what we can do. So there's as you're talking about this, it's quite fascinating. I've been getting geeky about the business of acting and showbiz, and obviously there's so many moving factors of coming up with the project, then creating that, filming it, actually creating it, and then distributing it. And these three are always communicating back and forth on how the story is actually going to develop. Because, you know, as you said, maybe distribution requires a star, then the star comes in, then you need to write around that, you need to highlight them because it works better if they're the lead.
Well, we're exploring the gap now that exists when you don't have connections, and so established actors who maybe have kids, those kids then have those connections, and they can get a seat at that table. I can get a seat at some tables because of the work I've done. There's an amount of credibility attached to that, but you only get one chance to sit down with people and show that you've got the ability to execute an idea on your own without relying on them mothering you through the process, because it can be a long winding process. It's a football field and there's many different directions that you can take from one end to the other. So there's great learning in that, and there's a great opportunity to learn, providing you've got the resources to keep you going through that process, which is long and expensive, and all the rest of it. So it makes sense to develop projects at different levels. But the end game on that is to create a company and create opportunities for working class people. Scratch that. For people of all classes, for people regardless of where they arrived, but based on their talent. And what I really would love to do in the end is create a film that is very big, but that doesn't rely necessarily on star talent, that relies on talent that has been developed within that film or that show, and that propels people into that space rather than relying on their currency to propel the project.
And how does streaming factor into this? Because streaming has rocked the traditional studio model quite a lot. It
goes against that philosophy because they want star names, they want star power to get you to click. You're scrolling through Netflix, you're scrolling through Apple, you're scrolling through whatever. You want to see a recognisable name to give that, even the first minute or two of your time that helps you decide whether you want to watch it or not. So it's not their fault. They
want to make back their money. There's only so many projects that can be passion projects.
Consumer behaviour, and in order to create a successful business that will sustain us all, you have to you have to understand consumer behaviour. But I think because we've been so saturated in the business that consumer behaviour is changing, and people are more open to independent projects, independent films, providing you can capture them with some good press or with whatever. I think independent film is coming through because people are a bit tired of large comic book franchises repeating and repeating, large universes that take a lot of investment of your head.
They also quite like at the high level, when the money people really get involved, it does become a bit formulaic. Like they want to just kind of, that worked back then, let's recreate that.
Tentpoles are incredibly formulaic, and that's fine, but the cost of that if they don't hit massively is massive. But if you're making a film for 20 grand and a film for 100 grand and a film for $1 million and a film for 10 million, and you've got those 4 films, hopefully 1 or 2 of those are going to be successful. It's very difficult it's very difficult for a film to be successful, but the more economies you can make in that, which maybe goes back to wages and stuff like that, the more economies you can make in that, the more chance you've got of making an independent film successful. Those tentpoles have a lot, they've got to cash a big check, and
it's a massive investment, so obviously they want to.
Is that a successful model anymore? I don't know that it is, and I don't know that but I think any model that we can pivot onto that encourages independent filmmaking is going to be great. And that's another issue, because we've got Creative Scotland and we've got all these other people. The amount of red tape that you need to go through to get money from these guys, they're expecting you to engage fully with them as creators on it, when really you're thinking, give us some money and stay out of the way, and that should be the model. Aye.
And sometimes they want to help, and to be fair, because I've got I think you know Jules Hussey.
I don't.
Oh, because you were at because we met at the screening of.
Oh God, I meet tons of people, and
I thought you might have. Well, she was there. She was my first producer. That was my first TV role in the UK, so for me it's special. That's why I remember everybody.
Did they produce Guilt?
Yes.
So she is.
She's in productions.
I do know her. Actually, I do know her. She rides motorbikes.
Yes,
I know her. Aye.
Right, and what was I going to make? I was going to make a point there about producing. Basically, this idea.
Indie producers get money and get out the way.
Well, yeah, she was talking about how like sometimes you do need to, like, as a producer, she would have to interact with the writer, and sometimes you'd be like, maybe we can do this in a better way. And she does it. She would like creative input. But the other flip side of this is that sometimes producers get way too, like, we're not even producers, the money people get way too involved, and then, you know, as you said, red tape and just.
I don't have any axe to grind with Creative Scotland, because I never really want any money from them. There's no point in my world where I'm ever going to go and ask them for money, because it takes too long and it's too much hassle to get money from them. And what you're doing is you're having a creative conversation with somebody who is creatively not as experienced as you are, but yet they want to sit in the status of the conversation. They want to tell you what you should do with your project, what you should do with this, what you should do with that, for 20% of your funding. The hoops you have to jump through, goodbye. But what I would like to see is a Creative Scotland that takes younger filmmakers, people, and gives them opportunities and supports them properly, not just lip service so that they can grab a name and put it out into their next PR thing so they can create jobs for themselves. These guys are sitting in effectively an ivory tower. They're setting themselves up as experts, and they do not know what it's like in the trenches. So I don't want anything to do with them.
Fair enough.
I would love to see them change into a company or an organisation that helps people make films. They help Scottish people make films. Creative Scotland. They're not doing it, so I don't want anything to do with them. But I'd really love to see them do that job. I think there's a great place, a great mission to be accomplished in that space.
And the other thing I wanted to ask is, you said you just finished filming a project in Cambodia with the crew there and everything, and it just reminded me of, like, I forgot the name, but the Welsh director who created the Raid 1 and 2, who now has gone on creating Gangs of London.
Don't know.
But this, when I moved to the UK thinking, you know, this is the big industry, this is where the big players are, yada yada yada, and I'm gonna go there and create beautiful works of art. And then I get to the UK, and right now it's going through a lot, and you kind of realise that there's a lot happening outside of the UK. Like, I did a theatre tour in Europe, I did stand-up in Europe, and then you see these directors that are doing stuff. Like, I've got a friend, Alessio, who started out in Hong Kong, and became a director, commercial director, then came back to the UK, and now he's built up this resume and can actually knock on doors and be like, look, I've got a track record, I've created all this stuff.
Here's what it kind of taps back to that other conversation we had about Creative Scotland, about people who don't have on their CV what you've got on their CV sitting in that. We talk down to Europe as if we're the better industry. The creative juice that exists in Europe is you could argue it's greater. It's a better. You walk round Berlin, and you, even without the audio on, you can see that the films those guys are making for much less money than we're putting into them are phenomenal. They look beautiful because they're concerned about art. If you've ever worked with a European crew, I was lucky enough to work with Nick Hurren on a thing called Devils in Rome, and that was
I saw that.
The creative juice that crew have, the care that they have, the passion that they have for their work, is from the DOP all the way down to the runners. They have passion, and you can tell they have passion because they bite back. They don't take crap off anybody. They have passion, and they make beautiful work. Media Pro, a huge company based out of Spain, I think it's $1 billion company, created a show called The Head that ended up on HBO that I was in as well. Those guys,
I think I know Catherine O'Donnelly,
lovely woman.
I did was it a Scottish youth theatre when I moved here with her guidance. I think she was involved in it.
She's phenomenal in that. She's done 3 seasons. Her career should be much bigger than it is, but I don't know whether it's because it's a Media Pro project, or it's made in Spain, or it's not often seen on our channels and it's only on HBO, something else, and Hulu. I think Hulu did it as a co-production. She's phenomenal in that. The cast is phenomenal. It's international. It's everything we want. It's diverse. It's a great story. The director, Jorge Dorado, is phenomenal. The 2 writers are phenomenal, and yet, well,
there is an element of hubris involved in the UK perception of we create the actors and we are we're the top of the game. And to be fair, like when you go to Europe, like right now because of Brexit, I'm a British trained actor with an EU passport.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, Brexit has benefited me because I get to like do a theatre tour.
Yeah.
But again, it's wild the fact that like I'm doing a theatre tour in English with a British director who lives in Germany, because they realize that they can't do anything. Yeah. They couldn't do anything at the time in the UK to get by. Moved to Germany, set up the biggest independent touring theatre company in the world, as far as I know. Like they're touring China to Costa Rica.
Wow.
In English.
Fantastic.
All of it in English, and you go, what is going on? Like, what is going on with the British
Brexit?
market?
Well, before Brexit, I could go and work in Italy, I could go and work in Spain, I could go and work in these different places, and now that doesn't happen as much because there's a visa issue. Brexit has been a real difficult thing for British actors exporting their talent into other countries, but there's a lot of productions coming here. I would argue we should be building the foundations for ourselves by getting our stories out in the world. I've always argued for that, because that external investment, American money effectively, that's coming into the UK is at the whim of other political regimes and other political decisions.
Trump just decided to.
So we should be building our own. We should be telling our own stories. Always, we should be telling our own stories.
You should start with yourself first, because you got to build up what you have around you. Otherwise,
and I would love to see an agreement where we get to work in Europe again without barriers, but at the moment that's not the case. So it benefits people like yourself.
Yeah, but it is wild, because like the UK right now is. There's hope. I'm not someone who's a pessimist. I think there's always, when there's a crisis, there's also opportunity. Yeah. Just have to look for it.
But it's been a hard 18 months. It's been a very difficult 18 months. Yeah.
All my friends that are like crew and working behind the camera are like, I've got nothing.
It's extremely sad. It really is.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess, I know I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you have to get on. You got stuff to do. We talked about producing. I guess I'm just curious what's going forward. Other than obviously you have these projects coming up.
We're trying to do a deal just now on a TV series for the UK. I've got a couple of other projects that are in the offing. I've got some stuff coming out. You can look online for that. I don't know what I'm allowed to say about it just yet. They put embargoes on things now. There's BBC thing coming out. There's ITV thing. as I say, we're trying to do a deal as we speak on a show, but we're struggling from the point of view of those wages are not at the point where we thought they might be. Although I'd love to do the job. It's a fantastic job.
Has the internet factored in? Then obviously you got the big mainstream production companies, distributors, but has that helped in any way for a producer's perspective of like getting stuff out there that way? In the stand-up scene, you do sketches, you do stuff that you can do with your mates, pop it up there, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, bish bash bosh. But for like a bigger project, for
a bigger projects, in terms of the information that you can get about people, on people that you want to target and make a call to, I mean, there's lots of advantages to that, and the internet and social media and stuff like that. They really only benefit you at the point of sale. And promotion, but it's a great leveler for that. Sales. I wish I knew more about it. I wish I'd invested more time in social media, but it's great for that. Although there is the flip side of that, where actors are being employed now based on the amount of social media followers they have, and you don't have to be a genius to know that if somebody's get 505,000 followers, then only 5,000 of those followers are real when they've bought the 500,000. It's like this synthetic echo chamber that I think producers are cottoning on to that now. There's got to be genuine engagement, but you can even buy that now, which is...
Because in the stand-up world right now, a lot of people what started doing is the Patreon model, which is you get your own subscribers that subscribe to you. You provide them content that only they can see. You got content that's available for free, so that way people can see what you do, and then if they want extra, they can pay for that. And I don't know, like ages ago, I just blurted this out of like, is it not possible to do a repertoire theatre company with a Patreon model where people subscribe, they get extra, they get early advance tickets, they get behind the scenes footage, like they get some stuff extra, but potentially creating like an independent repertoire theatre company that can, it can rent a building, without having a physical building with stuff, or I don't know.
Well, theatre, I think the funding model for theatre really ties into people who really benefits the establishment. If you have a great idea for a show, you should be able to get funding for that. You should be able to rent space in a theatre, and you should be able to put it on and let it exist in its own merit. That's how funding should support people. The way the funding is supporting people now is the same as in Creative Scotland as well. They're giving money to big buildings who know how to fill out all these forms. They have people whose only job is to fill out these forms and get funding. That's not benefiting grassroots. So that's the post-platform, or the non-platform world. The platformed world that we're in terms of social media, I don't know, it tends to lend itself more to content that can be viewed rather than live content. Maybe there's a post-platform model where you could offer those types of incentives for people to come and see live things at found spaces. I mean, there's tons of found spaces around Glasgow that you could put a theatre show on. It's the equivalent, I suppose, of passing around the hat, which again is a great way to do it. But the funding model for theatre doesn't benefit grassroots at the moment. It benefits, and what you go is you get actors who are getting terrible wages, going into buildings where every single person in that building is achieving a great salary 100% of the year, and that's where the funding's going. It's not going to help creative performers. It's not going to do that or support them or grow them or bring them on. It's going to let buildings exist, and if those buildings can't exist commercially, my argument would be that they shouldn't.
Fair. I mean, it's always funny, people love to talk about the free market. The higher levels, the big business people always love to talk about free market, except when they are the ones on the losing side of it, and suddenly it's like, we need to build them out.
Actors don't realise that if big buildings weren't accessing the funding at that level, even if you split it 50-50, and they were able to come up and access funding themselves with simple forms, simple explanations on the strength of talent and their show, where they then booked space in that building, could be 50% of the time or whatever, then that would help the grassroots, because you're opening a democratic market up to the entire creative community. But we save this building, save that building if it's employing actors, if it's bringing in new people, if it's encouraging new idea, if it's there to support people. There's enough commercial theatre in the West End taking the piss out of everybody, including consumers, these buildings, this funded theatre, that they want to be supporting actors properly, not just playing lip service to it. I save that building, but only if that building's saving me.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, again, it's a rock and roll industry. It's a lot. I mean, I'm still learning. That's why I love having these conversations.
My opinions are very controversial, but they can be. So I understand that my opinions are not your opinions.
But it's fair. Like, you have every right to your opinions and to express it. Your experience is yours.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe because I grew up in a former Soviet country, but freedom of speech, for fuck's sake, like.
Yeah, that's important. As long as what you're saying doesn't negatively impact other people, and I don't mean by insulting them. Everybody should be free to be insulted, but you don't want to be hurting people or encouraging other people.
Well, no, like I'm not talking about harassment. I'm not.
Oh yeah, definitely,
that sort of thing. But we should be able to have conversations about difficult issues, about sensitive issues, about money issues.
Charterhouse rules, a conversation or any kind of argument should be aimed at finding the truth, not pushing your own agenda. That's what I feel, because I might change my opinion. Hopefully I do.
Okay, and then I guess just to let you get back to your work as well, what would be part of me just wants to ask about Guy Ritchie, because I'm a little geek, right? But I feel like that's a story for another
I'll tell you about Guy Ritchie, I don't mind.
No, actually, I want to know, like, long term, like, what is the positive? What is the hope? What is, if we're gonna end this on a optimistic note, what can we see?
What do I want from my career, sort of thing, or what do I want from life?
For life, right? I'm just curious to, like, so people are watching this. I'm hoping it's people that are trying to learn about the industry of where it is right now in the UK. What is is there an optimistic message we can put out there?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's an optimistic. There's a great future, but it lies in the hands of independent people. It lies in the hands of independent film, independent theatre companies, independent artists clubbing together with great ideas and having some support to make them work.
Collaboration. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy.
Time. You have a lovely day.
Cheers.